Layer 1. Everyday assumptions. If I'm busy, I'm doing well. There's a quiet myth we carry, often unspoken but deeply ingrained, that to be busy is to be successful. To be constantly doing is to be somehow valid. We pack our hours with meetings, messages, deadlines, and chores, wearing exhaustion like a badge of honor. Busyness becomes proof that we are contributing, valuable, even admired. But beneath the motion lies a silent question. Are we moving towards something, or simply running from ourselves? Many of us confuse being busy with being purposeful. We think if every minute is accounted for, we must be living well. Yet, so often, our full calendars mask an inner emptiness, a fear of stillness that might reveal discomfort, questions, or the simple fact that we don't know who we are without the noise. We fear what arises in silence, so we drown it in constant motion. There's comfort in always having something to do, someone to reply to, somewhere to be. But sometimes, this is just a more sophisticated form of avoidance. Productivity becomes a performance, and we lose touch with what matters beneath it all. No one teaches us how to rest without guilt, how to pause without panic, how to say enough without feeling like we're falling behind. The truth is, a full life isn't measured by the number of tasks completed, but by the presence we bring to even the simplest moment. Growth doesn't always look like hustle. It often looks like reflection, like choosing to sit still when everything urges us to keep running, like noticing the breath, the quiet, the gentle voice beneath the noise that says, "You are already enough." Sometimes, doing nothing is the bravest thing, because in that space, we meet ourselves, and from there, we can begin again. Not as machines in motion, but as humans awake to the life within and around us. People are probably judging me right now. It's easy to walk into a room and immediately feel like all eyes are on you, measuring, evaluating, scanning every movement you make. A stumble in your words, a wrinkle in your shirt, a moment of hesitation, and suddenly, your mind spins stories of how others must be seeing you. You imagine the whisper, the laugh, the raised brow that may not even exist. But the truth is far more gentle. Most people are too busy navigating their own storms to monitor yours. We forget that everyone carries an inner world, thoughts looping, insecurities echoing, judgments they place on themselves louder than any they could place on you. Your anxiety creates a spotlight that isn't there. It convinces you that a silent glance equals disapproval, that a neutral tone means mockery, that your presence is always under surveillance. But in reality, people forget, forgive, and move on faster than your inner critic will ever allow. You are not a performance constantly being reviewed. You are a human being, allowed to exist without explanation. When you think they're judging me, you're often projecting your own harshness outward. It is the mirror of your self-doubt, not the lens of others. And even if someone does form an opinion, it says far more about them than about you. The fear of being judged can shrink you, make you quieter, smaller, less alive. But judgment, when it does happen, is fleeting. What stays is your choice to live fully, despite it, to show up, speak, exist, and stumble when needed, without needing to curate every breath. You are not required to manage the perceptions of strangers. You are not obligated to mold yourself into acceptability. Most people aren't judging you, and even if they are, it's not your weight to carry. I don't have time to rest. This thought often creeps in quietly, like a whisper disguised as responsibility. It tells you that the world will fall apart if you slow down, that your worth is measured by how much you can endure before breaking. So, you push through headaches, silence yawns, ignore the heavy pull in your limbs, all while telling yourself, just a bit more, then I'll pause. But the pause never comes. There's always another task, another message, another thing that demands your attention. Rest begins to feel like a luxury for people with less on their shoulders, as if recovery is something to be earned instead of something essential. But the truth is simple. Rest is not a reward. It's not something you give yourself after you've reached the end. It's something you need to survive the middle. The idea that rest must be justified is a lie fed to us by systems that profit from burnout and call it ambition. If you believe you don't have time to rest, what you often mean is, I don't feel allowed to. I don't feel safe slowing down. But there is no finish line where suddenly rest becomes acceptable. Your body cannot wait until it collapses to be cared for. The irony is that without rest, everything begins to unravel. Your clarity, your energy, your joy. Fatigue becomes your default. And even when you accomplish something, it feels hollow. True rest isn't just physical stillness. It's permission. It's letting go of the need to prove something with every waking hour. It's reclaiming your humanity from the grip of relentless urgency. You are not lazy for needing to pause. You are alive, and like anything living, you require cycles of work and stillness, of giving and receiving. Rest is not in the way of life. It is part of it. And if you don't make time to rest, your body will eventually take it, whether you agree or not. I can't say no without being rude. Many of us were taught to be agreeable, to smile even when we're tired, to say yes even when it feels heavy. Somewhere along the way, we learned that no was a rejection, a disruption, even a personal failure. So we nod while our boundaries bend. We agree while our energy drains. And we convince ourselves that declining is a kind of violence, that it makes us cold, selfish, or ungrateful. But the truth is, saying no is not cruelty. It's clarity. It's knowing where your limits are and choosing to honor them. Every time you say yes to something you don't want, you're also saying no to something that might matter more. Your peace, your rest, your truth. Politeness becomes a prison when it overrides your needs. You are not responsible for managing everyone's reaction to your boundaries. You are only responsible for expressing them with honesty and respect. If someone interprets your no as rude, it often reflects their discomfort with hearing limits, not your failure in setting them. We fear conflict so much that we'd rather betray ourselves than disappoint others. But self-abandonment is not kindness. It's a slow erosion of self-respect. Real connection comes not from endless compliance, but from authenticity, from showing up as a whole person, not a people-pleasing echo. Boundaries are not barriers to love. They are the conditions in which love can breathe. And every time you say no to something misaligned, you're saying yes to a version of yourself that is honest, grounded, and real. You don't need to explain, over-apologize, or soften your no into something unrecognizable. Sometimes, a simple, firm no is the most respectful thing you can offer, to others and to yourself. I need to answer immediately, or they'll be upset. In an age where a message can travel across the world in seconds, we've come to believe that our responses should, too. A notification pings, and urgency kicks in. You feel a pull to reply right away. Not because you're ready, but because you fear what silence might mean. Maybe they'll think you're ignoring them, Maybe they'll take it personally. Maybe they'll be hurt, so you drop what you're doing, even if you're tired, overwhelmed, or simply not in the right headspace. You prioritize their expectation over your own presence. But here's the truth. Instant responses are not a measure of care. Constant availability does not define your worth. The belief that silence equals disrespect is a false urgency created by a world addicted to immediacy. People who care about you understand that you're human, that you have moods, moments, and limits. And if someone grows upset because you didn't respond instantly, that says more about their expectations than your intentions. The need to answer immediately often stems from deeper fears. The fear of being rejected, misunderstood, or disappointing someone. But you are allowed to take space. You are allowed to breathe before you respond. The space between message and reply is not disrespect. It is reflection. And in many cases, it allows you to respond with more presence, more clarity, and more honesty. There is nothing wrong with pausing. The right people won't punish your silence. They'll trust your rhythm. You are not a machine designed for constant output. You are a person. You don't owe your immediacy to anyone. Let your responses come from a place of truth, not fear. Let go of the need to fill every silence, and you might find that the world is more forgiving than you think. More is always better. It's a belief so deeply woven into our culture that we rarely pause to question it. More success, more followers, more money, more stuff. Always reaching, always chasing, always accumulating. The idea is simple and seductive. If a little makes me feel good, then more will make me feel even better. But the truth is, this mindset creates a hunger that never ends. The finish line keeps moving. The satisfaction fades faster each time. What once felt like an achievement now feels like a baseline, and the bar rises again. The pursuit of more becomes a treadmill. We move constantly but never arrive. And in the process, we forget how to feel full. We begin to measure ourselves not by meaning, but by metrics. How many things we own, how busy we are, how much we've done. But more does not always mean better. More can mean cluttered. More can mean disconnected. More can mean chasing quantity while losing quality. Some of the richest experiences in life are small, quiet, and easy to overlook when we're focused on acquiring the next thing. Growth is beautiful, but not when it's driven by fear of not being enough. The world will always offer you something to chase. And if you're not careful, you'll mistake the chase for the point. You'll miss the sunset because you're scrolling for the next goal. You'll ignore the quiet joy in your hands because your eyes are fixed on what's missing. Real wealth is being able to recognize sufficiency, to pause and say, "This is enough. I am enough." More is not bad, but it's not always better. Sometimes, what we truly need is less noise, less comparison, less pressure. What if the better life isn't about having more, but feeling deeper, breathing slower, noticing clearer? What if the fullness you've been searching for was never in the more, but in finally stopping long enough to feel what's already here? I must stay productive all the time. Somewhere along the way, productivity became our religion. Our days are measured not by how we feel, but by how much we accomplish. Waking up tired, push through. Feeling uninspired, keep working. The message is clear. If you're not producing, you're falling behind. If you're resting, you're wasting time. But this belief turns life into a machine and the self into a tool. It forgets that we are not made to function endlessly. We are made to breathe, to pause, to reflect. Productivity has its place, but it is not the measure of your worth. You are not only valuable when you're useful, you are not only allowed to exist when you're ticking boxes. Constant productivity can become a shield, something we hide behind to avoid stillness, where harder questions live. Who am I when I stop doing? What remains when there is nothing left to prove? We chase productivity because it gives us control, predictability, and a sense of being needed. But it also burns us out, numbs us to joy, and teaches us to fear rest. The truth is, life moves in seasons. There are times for building, and there are times for simply being. Growth doesn't always look like output. Sometimes it looks like restoration, like choosing a walk over another task, like doing nothing, and not apologizing for it. The obsession with being productive every moment steals the moments that matter. The laughter you didn't have time for, the nap you guilted yourself out of, the conversation you skipped because your to-do list felt more important. But at the end of the day, no one will remember how efficient you were. They'll remember how present you were, how alive you felt, how deeply you connected. You don't need to earn rest. You don't need to justify stillness. You are not a factory. You are a person. And being alive is not the same as being productive. Let that be enough. If I'm not struggling, I'm being lazy. There's a quiet belief many of us carry, often shaped by years of pressure and praise, that only through struggle do we earn our worth, that if something feels easeful, it must be wrong. That rest, joy, or lightness are indulgences we can only touch after we've suffered enough. So we normalize discomfort. We glorify the grind. We associate pain with progress and call anything else laziness. But this belief confuses suffering with meaning. It makes us chase hardship, not out of necessity, but out of habit. We begin to distrust peace. We grow suspicious of stillness. And when life finally offers a gentle moment, we rush to fill it with noise, guilt, or unnecessary tasks. Because we've been taught that ease must be earned. But what if that's a lie? What if you don't have to struggle to deserve peace? What if ease isn't laziness, but alignment? A sign that, for once, something fits, something flows. Struggle is not a requirement for value, and ease is not a signal of failure. Yes, growth can be hard. Yes, challenge has its place, but not everything needs to be a mountain. Some days are meant to be soft. Some victories come quietly. And sometimes, ease is a gift you don't need to explain. The fear of being lazy often stems from a deeper fear, that we are only lovable when we're proving something. That rest equals weakness. But your worth is not tied to how much you hustle, or how much you hurt. You don't have to exhaust yourself to justify your existence. You can choose rest without apology. You can move through your day without dragging chains behind you. You can trust moments of peace, not as signs of laziness, but as part of being human. Struggle may have shaped you, but it does not have to define you. Let ease in. Let it stay. You don't need to suffer to matter. I should always be available. There's a quiet pressure that follows us everywhere, a sense that we must be reachable at all times, that every call must be answered, every message replied to, every invitation accepted. Being available becomes an identity, the reliable one, the helper, the one who's always there. But over time, this constant accessibility becomes a drain. You begin to flinch at notifications, not out of curiosity, but out of obligation. Your time is no longer your own. It belongs to everyone who might need you. And somewhere in that constant yes, you begin to disappear. The belief that you must always be available is rooted in fear. The fear of letting people down, of being seen as selfish, of missing something important. But availability is not the same as care. You can love someone deeply and still need space. You can be kind and still choose silence. Your presence is meaningful not because it's constant, but because it's conscious. When you force yourself to be always on, you sacrifice the very energy that allows you to connect meaningfully. You show up stretched thin, distracted, tired, and that's not generosity, it's depletion. You are allowed to set limits. You are allowed to be unavailable, to turn off your phone, to miss a call, to choose rest over responsiveness. The people who respect you will understand. The ones who don't were never entitled to that access in the first place. Your time is sacred. Your peace is worth protecting. You don't owe everyone your immediate attention. You don't have to explain every pause, every no, every hour of solitude. Being available should be a choice, not a burden. You are not a lifeline for everyone else. You are a person, and people need space to breathe, to be, to come home to themselves. Let your boundaries speak as clearly as your words. Let your absence be as intentional as your presence. They must think less of me now. After a mistake, a stumble, or a moment of vulnerability, this thought often creeps in like a shadow. You replay the words you said, the way your voice cracked, the thing you forgot to do, and suddenly your mind fills in the blanks. They probably think I'm incompetent, weak, awkward. You assume the worst and call it awareness. But most of the time, this is not reality. It's insecurity dressed as logic. The truth is, people don't remember your flaws as vividly as you do. While you're busy dissecting every detail of a moment that felt off, others have likely already moved on, lost in their own self-conscious loops. The spotlight you feel on yourself is often a mirror. It reflects your own harshness, not the world's. And even when someone notices your imperfections, it doesn't mean they judge you as harshly as you think. In fact, your openness, your humanness, your mistakes, they often make you more relatable, not less. Everyone stumbles. Everyone falters. But not everyone gives themselves permission to do so. You are not meant to be flawless. You are meant to be real. If you live in constant fear of what others think, you build a cage out of assumptions. You become smaller, quieter, less authentic. Not because others are demanding that, but because you imagine they might, and that imagined judgment becomes more powerful than any real words ever spoken. But here's the truth. People's opinions will shift, fade, or never form at all. What matters is not what they might be thinking, but what you choose to believe. You are not defined by one moment. You are not reduced to your worst version. The people who truly matter will see the whole of you, not just the stumble. And those who judge you harshly are often reflecting their own wounds, not yours. Let go of the weight of imagined disgrace. Let yourself be imperfect and still worthy. Layer 2. Cultural and family imprints. Crying is a sign of weakness. Many of us were raised in environments where tears were met with discomfort, silence, or even shame. Stop crying, be strong, don't be so sensitive. These words were not always said with cruelty, but they left a message behind. Emotions should be hidden, pain should be swallowed, and crying is something to be ashamed of. Over time, we internalize the idea that tears made us fragile, irrational, or dramatic. We learned to hold them back, to pretend we were fine even when we weren't. But here's the truth. crying is not weakness, it is release. It is the body's natural way of processing what words can't carry. Just as laughter expresses joy, tears express pain, grief, or even profound beauty. They are not evidence that something is wrong with you. They are proof that you are feeling, that something matters, that your heart is still alive. To cry is to be human, and to allow those tears to fall is an act of courage, not collapse. The idea that strength means silence is a cultural lie. True strength is not in suppression, but in the willingness to face what is real. When you deny your tears, you deny a part of yourself. You push emotion into the dark, where it grows heavier, sharper, and more confusing. But when you let it move through you, something softens, something heals. Tears connect us, not just to our own truth, but to the humanity in others. Think about the moments where someone cried in front of you, not out of manipulation, but out of vulnerability. Did you see weakness, or did you see something real, something raw, something brave? You do not need to be stoned to be strong. You do not need to hold everything together all the time. Let the tears come when they need to. Let them flow without apology. You are not broken for crying. You are breaking open, and that is its own kind of power. Success means having money and status. From a young age, we're taught to aim high, but the definition of high is often narrow. We're shown pictures of success, the car, the house, the title, the applause. We're told to study hard, work harder, and climb the invisible ladder that leads to being someone. And at the top of that ladder, status, wealth, recognition, these become the metrics by which we measure our lives. And slowly, without even realizing it, we begin to believe that if we haven't made it in those terms, we've failed. But the truth is, success has been sold to us as a product, a finish line we must chase, no matter what we lose along the way. Relationships, health, sleep, joy. We trade them for promotions and approval, for numbers in a bank account, for titles that may impress others but leave us hollow. There is nothing wrong with ambition. Money and achievement are not evil, but when they become the only things we value, we forget why we wanted them in the first place. What good is success if it costs your peace? What meaning is there in climbing higher if you feel emptier the further you go? True success is not how many people admire you. It's how deeply you know yourself. It's not how much you own. It's how fully you show up in your own life. It's not status, it's alignment. Are you living in a way that feels honest? Are you tending to what matters most, even if it's invisible to others? The world may not clap for inner peace. It may not promote you for being kind, generous, or grounded. But those are forms of success no trophy can measure. Redefining success doesn't mean giving up. It means waking up. It means asking, who am I becoming in the process of achieving? And is that person someone I actually want to be? I have to make my parents proud. This thought often begins as love, a desire to give back, to honor the people who raised us, to be the reflection they can proudly show the world. But slowly, quietly, it can become something heavier, a pressure, a script, a shadow that follows every choice, every success, every failure. You begin to ask, not, is this right for me? But would they approve? You measure your life by how well it fits their expectations, even when those expectations no longer align with who you are, and when you fall short or choose differently. The guilt is loud. You wonder if you've disappointed them, if you're ungrateful, if you've failed not just yourself, but them. But here's the truth. Your life is not a stage for someone else's dreams. Your path is not an apology for their sacrifices. It's okay to want to make your parents proud, but not at the cost of abandoning yourself. Pride is not just about achievements, it's about honesty, about living in a way that reflects your truth, not someone else's hope. The most loving thing you can do is to become fully yourself, even if that version looks different than what your parents imagined. They may not understand at first. They may resist. They may even grieve the version of you they held in their minds. But over time, many come to see that real pride doesn't come from control. It comes from witnessing your child stand tall in their own skin. And even if they never do, your worth is not dependent on their approval. You were not born to fulfill someone else's definition of success. You were born to discover your own. Making your parents proud is a beautiful thing when it's the result of being true to yourself, not the condition for it. You can love them deeply and still choose your own life. That is not betrayal. That is growth. Good people always put others first. This idea is often wrapped in praise. We call people selfless, generous, compassionate when they give and ask for nothing. We admire those who stay late, say yes, pick up the pieces, and never complain. And somewhere in that admiration, we absorb a quiet rule. That being good means being last. That kindness requires self-erasure. So we downplay our needs, swallow our fatigue, silence our no. We learn to shrink in the name of care. But over time, something shifts. Giving begins to feel heavy. Helping turns into resentment. You find yourself exhausted, unseen, and strangely alone because you've taught others that your needs are secondary, that your time, your energy, your presence are always available. But here's the truth. Constantly putting others first is not sustainable, and it is not the definition of goodness. Real kindness includes the self. Real compassion starts with honoring your own limits. When you abandon yourself for others, you're not helping, you're disappearing. And that disappearance does not make you noble. It makes you burnt out, hollow, and sometimes quietly bitter. Being a good person does not mean being a doormat. It means being honest. It means knowing when to give and when to rest, when to support and when to step back. You can be deeply kind and still say no. You can love others fiercely and still choose yourself. The people who truly care about you will not be hurt by your boundaries. They will be grateful for your truth. You are not selfish for taking up space in your own life. You are not cruel for refusing to drain yourself for others. Putting yourself first is not an act of ego. It is an act of survival. And from that place of wholeness, your care becomes real, generous, and free. Not an obligation, not a performance, but a gift. Anger should be suppressed. Anger is one of the most misunderstood emotions. Many of us were taught that it's dangerous, shameful, or even childish. We heard phrases like, calm down, don't overreact, or anger solves nothing. And slowly, we began to hide it. We held it in our throats, behind polite smiles, beneath apologetic silence. We convinced ourselves that to be angry is to lose control, to be wrong, to be unlikable. But the truth is, anger is not the enemy. Suppressed anger is when we shove it down. It doesn't disappear. It hardens. It leaks out in bitterness, sarcasm, tension, or quiet resentment. It festers in the body, tightens the chest, shortens the breath. Anger, at its core, is a signal. A boundary has been crossed, a need has gone unmet, a truth has been ignored. When expressed with awareness, anger is not destruction, it's clarity. It tells you what matters, what hurts, what must change. But when we silence that voice, we also silence parts of ourselves that deserve to be heard. Suppressing anger in the name of peace is not peace. It's avoidance. It's decorating a cracked wall instead of repairing the foundation. You are allowed to feel angry. You are allowed to say, "This hurt me." You can be kind and still be firm. You can be loving and still say, "No more." Anger doesn't make you less spiritual, less good, less worthy. It makes you honest. The key is not to lash out, but to listen. Let your anger inform you, not control you. Let it guide you to your values, your limits, your voice. Expressed with intention, anger becomes a tool, not a weapon. You don't have to explode to be real, and you don't have to suppress to be loved. There is power in naming what burns, and freedom in no longer apologizing for feeling it. Being emotional is being irrational. Somewhere along the way, emotion and logic were split in two, one labeled soft, messy, unreliable, the other praised as strong, clear, and right. We were taught that to be emotional was to lose control, that tears distort reason, that anger clouds truth, that softness is a flaw, so we learned to doubt our feelings. We tried to become thinkers without hearts. We polished our arguments, silenced our trembles, and wore detachment like armor. But the truth is, emotion is not the enemy of logic. It's its companion. Feelings are data. They point to what matters, what hurts, what needs healing. Emotion adds depth to reason. It gives context to fact. Without it, decisions become hollow, relationships become mechanical, and we become strangers to ourselves. To feel deeply is not to be irrational, it is to be alive. Dismissing emotion as weakness is a cultural habit, not a universal truth. And often, it's fear dressed up as reason. Fear of appearing vulnerable, fear of being judged, fear of losing control. But suppressing emotion does not make you wise. It makes you distant, and sometimes dishonest. Real clarity comes not from choosing one side of yourself, but from learning how to listen to both, the quiet voice of reason and the powerful pulse of feeling. You are not weak for crying. You are not unstable for trembling when something moves you. You are not less credible because your voice shakes while telling the truth. Emotion is not the opposite of intelligence. It is a form of it. Let yourself feel without apology. Let your emotions speak, and then let your reason respond. When they work together, you don't become less human. You become whole. Failure is shameful. We're often taught from an early age that failure is something to avoid at all costs. In school, it's marked in red. At home, it might be met with silence or disappointment. In society, it's something we hide, edit out, bury beneath a highlight reel of achievements. So we internalize a dangerous equation: failure, worthlessness. And with that, we begin to fear trying, not because we lack the will, but because we dread the shame of falling short. We hesitate to take risks, speak up, or step into the unknown, because the cost of getting it wrong feels too high. But here's the truth. Failure is not shameful. It's natural. It's essential. It's one of the most honest signs that you are learning, growing, stretching into something new. No one escapes failure, not the most talented, not the most prepared, not the most praised. What separates growth from stagnation is not success, but how we respond when things don't go as planned. Shame tries to convince us that failure defines us, that if we fail at something, we are a failure. But that's a lie. You are not your setbacks. You are not your lowest moment. Failure is feedback, not a verdict. It says, something didn't work, not you don't work, and often. It reveals more than success ever could, what matters to you, what you're willing to fight for, and what you're capable of becoming when nothing is certain. The most powerful people you admire, artists, innovators, leaders, they all carry stories of rejection, mistakes, and redirection. What made them remarkable wasn't perfection. It was resilience. You are allowed to fail. You are allowed to feel disappointed. But you do not need to feel ashamed. Shame closes doors. But compassion, especially for yourself, opens them. Let failure be a teacher, not a jailer. You're not falling behind. You're becoming. Talking about problems is attention-seeking. This belief often grows in silence. Maybe you were told directly, or maybe you just noticed that when you shared something hard, the room got uncomfortable. Eyes looked away. Voices changed. Someone said, others have it worse. Or, don't be dramatic. So you learned to smile through pain. You became skilled at minimizing your struggles, brushing off your sadness, laughing through the ache. You told yourself, no one wants to hear this. If I speak up, I'm being too much. But the truth is, talking about your problems doesn't make you weak, and it doesn't make you selfish. It makes you human. Expressing pain is not a performance. It's not a cry for attention. It's a signal, a reaching out, a longing to be seen, to be understood, to not have to carry everything alone. We all need that. We all break sometimes, and no one should have to do it in silence. The idea that asking for support is attention-seeking is rooted in cultures that glorify independence and shame vulnerability. But pretending to be fine is not strength. It's survival. And survival is not the same as healing. Real connection begins when we tell the truth, when we say, I'm not okay, when we give others permission to do the same. And yes, not everyone will know how to hold space. Some might still turn away, but others will lean in. They will say, me too. And in that moment, the loneliness breaks. Talking about problems is not about seeking validation. It's about releasing pressure, about naming the heaviness so it doesn't bury you. You don't have to be silent to be respected. You don't have to hide your struggles to be loved. Your story matters. Your pain is valid. And your voice, especially when it trembles, is not a burden. It's a bridge. Obedience equals virtue. In many cultures and families, obedience is praised above all else. A quiet child is called good. A compliant student is seen as respectful. A person who never questions, never argues, never resists. This is what we're taught to become. And over time, this silent lesson forms a belief that to follow is to be virtuous, that to obey is to be loved, that dissent is danger. So we learn to shrink our opinions, to nod when we disagree, to hold back discomfort, and eventually, we confuse obedience with goodness. But the truth is, obedience is not the same as integrity. Following rules without question does not make you kind. Suppressing your voice does not make you noble. Virtue is not silence. It is alignment. It is living in a way that reflects your inner truth, even when that truth challenges what you were taught. Sometimes, disobedience is the most honest act of care. Sometimes, saying no is the clearest form of self-respect. You are allowed to question. You are allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to defy expectations that do not fit who you are becoming. Being good is not about pleasing everyone. It's about honoring your values, your boundaries, your voice. Obedience without reflection breeds conformity, not compassion. It rewards quietness, not courage. And while following can be safe, safety is not always growth. Real virtue is found in the difficult moments, when you choose what is right over what is easy, when you speak up instead of staying small, when you listen inward before following outward. You do not owe anyone blind loyalty. You were not born to be obedient. You were born to be whole, and the world needs more wholeness than quiet compliance. Your voice matters, even when it disrupts, especially when it does. My worth comes from my achievements. From the moment we receive our first gold star or pat on the head, we learn something subtle but powerful. Achievement equals approval. Do well, and you're praised. Excel, and you're admired. Succeed, and you're told you matter. And slowly, we begin to chase that feeling. We collect trophies, degrees, promotions, not just for the accomplishment itself, but for what it promises. Worthiness, belonging, love. But what happens when the applause fades? What remains when there's nothing new to show? We often fear that without achievement, we are empty. That rest equals laziness. That being average equals failure. So we push, we strive, we stay busy. Not just to succeed, but to prove we're enough. But here's the truth. Your value does not live in your resume. It does not fluctuate with your performance. You are not more lovable when you're winning, and not less when you fall. Achievements are beautiful. They represent effort, growth, and skill. But they are not your identity. They are not the currency of your worth. When you tie your value to outcomes, you live in a fragile world, one where a setback can shatter your sense of self. Real confidence comes not from being the best, but from knowing you're enough even when you're not, even when you fail, even when no one's watching. You were worthy before you achieved anything, and you'll still be worthy if it all falls away. Who you are is not defined by what you do. It's defined by how you live, how you love, how you treat yourself and others when there is no prize to be won. Let your achievements be expressions, not validations. Let them reflect your joy, your passion, your growth, not your worth, because you are already whole. No accomplishment can give you that, and none can take it away. Layer 3. Thought traps and ego mechanics. If I try and fail, I'll be humiliated. This thought sits quietly behind many of our dreams, whispering warnings before we even begin. What if you fall flat? What if people laugh? What if they remember? So instead of stepping forward, we shrink, we rehearse excuses, we wait for the perfect moment, the guaranteed outcome, the invisible sign that it's finally safe to be seen. But here's the truth. Fear of failure is often not about failure itself. It's about shame, about how exposed we'll feel if we try and it doesn't work, about the imagined eyes watching, judging, confirming every doubt we've ever had about ourselves. Yet most of this humiliation is imagined. People are far less focused on your mistakes than you think, and those who are quick to mock, they're often projecting their own fears, because it's easier to criticize the brave than to become brave yourself. Failure is not a spotlight, it's a classroom, and the willingness to try in the face of uncertainty is not foolish, it's courageous. Every person who has done something meaningful has risked falling, and many have, not once, but often. They did not become great by avoiding embarrassment. They became great by surviving it, by learning that failure stings, but it doesn't destroy, that you can blush, break, and still rise again. The real humiliation isn't in trying and failing. It's in living small because you were too afraid to begin. You are not fragile. You are not defined by one outcome. Let yourself try, and let yourself fall if needed. Fall with grace. Rise with clarity. You will not be remembered for being perfect. You'll be remembered for being real. If someone rejects me, it means something's wrong with me. Rejection can feel like a spotlight, sudden, harsh, and deeply personal. When someone pulls away, says no, or simply doesn't choose us, our minds rush to fill the silence. What did I do wrong? What's lacking in me? Why wasn't I enough? It's easy to internalize that moment as proof of our unworthiness, especially if we've been hurt before, especially if we were taught that approval equals value. But the truth is, rejection is rarely about your entire self. It's about fit, timing, preference, circumstance, often things beyond your control. You are not defective because someone didn't stay. Their choice is not a mirror of your brokenness. It is a reflection of their path, their needs, their perspective. And sometimes, that path simply doesn't include you, and that's not your fault. Not every door is meant to open. Not every connection is meant to last. And not every no is a verdict. It might be redirection, it might be protection, it might even be a gift in disguise. But when you tie your identity to others' acceptance, you give them power over your peace. You become a shapeshifter, trying to be likable, agreeable, perfect, just to avoid the sting of being left. But no amount of performing will keep the wrong people, and no amount of rejection will remove what is real in you. You are allowed to feel hurt, to grieve what didn't work, but don't turn someone's absence into self-condemnation. You are not less because they said no. You are not unlovable because they walked away. Rejection is not evidence of your flaws. It's just a moment that didn't align. Let it pass. Let it teach you. Let it remind you that your worth never depended on anyone staying. They're doing better than me. I'm falling behind. Comparison has a quiet way of creeping into your life. You scroll through someone's highlight reel and suddenly, your own pace feels too slow. Their promotion, their relationship, their creativity. It all becomes a measure of your inadequacy. You start counting their wins, your delays, their smiles, your doubts. And without even realizing it, you've turned someone else's timeline into a ruler for your own. But here's the truth. Life is not a race. There is no singular track, no master schedule you've failed to meet. People arrive at different destinations at different times, and that doesn't make you late. It makes you human. The myth of falling behind is rooted in illusion. It assumes we're all running toward the same goals, the same milestones, the same dreams, but we're not. Your path is yours, and it may include pauses, redirections, detours that others never face. That doesn't make you lesser. It makes you real. Success is not linear. Growth isn't always visible. And fulfillment cannot be measured by someone else's story. What you see online, or even in real life, is rarely the full picture. You don't see the doubt behind their smile, the grief behind their win, the sacrifices behind their peace. When you compare, you reduce your life to what it lacks, instead of honoring what it holds. And when you chase after someone else's timeline, you often abandon your own rhythm. You rush through the beauty of your becoming. You miss the quiet progress unfolding in your own way. You are not behind. You are becoming. In your own time, in your own truth. Let others inspire you, but don't let them define you. You are not in competition. You are in process. If I forgive, I'll look weak. Forgiveness is often misunderstood. We're taught to see it as surrender, as giving in, as letting someone off the hook. We imagine that if we forgive, we're telling the world and the person who hurt us that what they did was okay, that we're soft, naive, easy to manipulate. So instead, we hold on. We grip our resentment like a shield. We wear our anger like armor. It makes us feel strong, in control, untouchable. But over time, that armor grows heavy. That shield begins to isolate. The pain we thought we were protecting ourselves from continues to echo inside us. The truth is, forgiveness isn't about weakness. It's about release. It's not saying what you did was right. It's saying, I choose not to carry this anymore. It's reclaiming your energy from the past, choosing peace over poison. Forgiveness is strength because it asks you to confront your wound instead of avoiding it. It requires clarity, courage, and often heartbreak. But in that process, something shifts. The hold that pain had on you begins to loosen. You don't forget. You don't excuse. You simply stop letting it control your present. People may mistake your forgiveness for passivity, but they will never know the depth of power it takes to let go, to choose healing over ego, to move forward when it would be easier to stay bitter. Forgiveness does not make you weak. Carrying anger forever doesn't make you strong. True strength is choosing what frees you, and sometimes that means setting down the weight of what was done, not because they deserve peace, but because you do. I have to prove I'm right. There's a subtle addiction many of us carry. The need to be right, not just to know we're right, but to prove it, to win the argument, to make them see, to correct the record, defend our stance, and walk away validated. At first glance, it seems harmless, even noble. After all, what's wrong with standing by the truth? But beneath this compulsion is often something deeper. The fear of being dismissed, disrespected, unseen. When someone challenges our perspective, it can feel like a threat, not just to the idea, but to our identity. So we double down, we interrupt, we gather evidence, we raise our voices, and in the process, we stop listening. The goal shifts from connection to control, but here's the truth. Being right is not the same as being wise. Winning a debate does not mean you've built understanding. You can be completely correct and completely closed. Sometimes, the insistence on being right comes from ego, not integrity. And the louder you try to prove your truth, the more fragile it starts to feel. Real strength isn't about dominating a conversation. It's about knowing when to speak and when to let go. Sometimes, letting someone misunderstand you is more powerful than exhausting yourself trying to change their mind. You don't always need to correct. You don't need to win every exchange. There is freedom in choosing peace over pride, in pausing and asking, is this worth my energy? Is this about truth, or about being seen as the one who knows? Let your clarity speak for itself. Let your life embody your values. You don't need to force people to agree with you. Your worth does not rise and fall with someone else's recognition. Sometimes the wisest thing you can do is walk away, not because you lost, but because you've learned what truly matters. If I feel anxious, I'm not ready. Anxiety has a way of making us doubt ourselves before we even begin. It whispers, "You're not prepared. You'll mess this up. This isn't the right time." And because it feels so real, so physical, so immediate, we assume it must be telling the truth. We confuse discomfort with danger, tension with a warning sign. And so, we wait, We wait to feel calm, confident, certain. We tell ourselves, when I stop feeling this way, I'll act, but that moment rarely comes. Because anxiety isn't always a sign that something is wrong. Often, it means you're standing at the edge of growth, at the edge of risk, at the beginning of something that matters to you. The body doesn't only tremble in fear, it also trembles in transformation. You can feel nervous and still be ready. You can feel unsteady and still move forward. Readiness isn't the absence of emotion. It's the decision to carry that emotion with you. Some of the most courageous steps you'll take in life will come with a racing heart and shaking hands. And that's okay. You don't have to feel brave to be brave. Anxiety doesn't disqualify you. It doesn't mean you lack skill or strength. It means you're alive, alert, deeply invested in what's about to unfold, and that matters. Imagine if every musician, speaker, or dreamer waited until they felt no fear. The world would be silent, so instead, choose to breathe. Let the anxiety be there, but don't let it lead. Let it sit beside you, not speak for you. You are not broken because your body responds to pressure. You are human, and your readiness is not measured by stillness. It's measured by willingness. You don't have to be perfect to begin. You just have to begin. As you are, they should know what I need. I shouldn't have to say it. This belief often grows in silence. You give hints. You drop signals. You wait patiently, hoping they'll notice, hoping they'll sense the tiredness in your voice, the disappointment in your eyes, the pause in your replies. And when they don't respond the way you need, something inside you breaks. You feel unseen, unloved, unimportant, but you also feel trapped. Because to speak your needs feels awkward, maybe even wrong. You think, if they really cared, they would just know. But the truth is, even the people who love you deeply are not mind readers. They cannot feel the storm inside you unless you open the window. Expecting someone to meet an unspoken need is setting them up to fail and setting yourself up for quiet resentment. Clear communication isn't selfish. It's an act of trust. It says, I want you to know me, not guess me. It says, my needs are not a burden. They are part of being human. We often believe that love means effortless understanding. But real connection isn't effortless. It's intentional. It's built through dialogue, not assumptions. And yes, it can feel vulnerable to ask, to say, I need help. I need space. I need you to listen. But that vulnerability is what creates closeness, not distance. When you speak your truth, you give someone a real chance to meet you, not through guessing, but through care. Silence might feel safer, but it isolates. And unspoken expectations often turn into quiet disappointment. You deserve to be known clearly, not imagined vaguely. Say what you need. It's not weakness, it's clarity, and clarity is a gift. I need to win to matter. Winning feels good. It gives us recognition, status, a brief silence to the inner doubts that constantly whisper we're not enough. From childhood, we're often rewarded not just for effort, but for being better than our classmates, our siblings, our peers. First place gets applause, second place gets forgotten. And so we learn to be seen. We must win, to matter. We must rise above. But this belief quietly corrodes our sense of worth. It ties our value to comparison. It says, if I lose, I disappear. If I'm not the best, I don't count. So we chase victory, not just in games or grades, but in life itself, in conversations, in relationships, even in healing. We turn growth into a competition, identity into a scoreboard, and in doing so, we miss the point. You were not born to win. You were born to live. Winning is an event. Mattering is a condition of being. You don't become important because you beat someone. You matter because you exist, feel, breathe, care. The hunger to win is often a mask for something softer. The longing to feel valid, seen, undeniable. But no number of victories will quiet that need if you don't believe it about yourself first. When your sense of self depends on being on top, you will always fear falling. Every mistake becomes a threat. Every talented peer becomes a rival. Every moment of rest feels like a lost chance. But what if you stepped off that track? What if being average wasn't failure, but freedom? What if your impact wasn't measured by trophies, but by how deeply you live, how honestly you love, how fully you show up? You are not a product of your victories. You are a person, worthy even when no one is clapping. When you let go of the need to win, you create space for connection, for learning, for peace. You no longer have to prove that you matter. You just have to remember that you always did. If I let go, I'll lose control. There's a certain safety in control, in knowing what's coming, in managing every detail, every outcome, every emotion. We cling to structure like it's a lifeboat. We plan, double-check, overthink, because somewhere inside, we believe that if we don't hold on tightly, everything will fall apart. The idea of letting go feels dangerous, irresponsible, weak. But what we often don't realize is that control itself can become a cage. The more we try to manage life into predictability, the more anxious we become when things, inevitably, don't go as planned. The weather shifts, people change, emotions rise, and suddenly, we feel exposed, vulnerable, helpless. So we tighten our grip. But here's the paradox. The harder you try to control everything, the more out of control you feel. Life resists being boxed in, and the attempt to dominate every moment disconnects you from presence, from peace, from people. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It doesn't mean becoming careless or passive. It means recognizing what is and isn't yours to hold. It means softening into the flow of life instead of fighting every current. It's trusting that not everything needs your supervision to be okay. That some things can fall into place without your force. And that, even if they don't, you have the strength to meet what comes. True stability isn't built by controlling the world. It's built by cultivating inner steadiness, the kind that doesn't collapse when plans change or outcomes shift. Letting go is not losing control. It's releasing the illusion that you ever had it to begin with. You are allowed to rest your grip. You are allowed to exhale. You are allowed to be held by life, instead of always holding it up. You don't need to micromanage the future to survive it. You just need to show up, honest, open, and willing to adjust. Sometimes the greatest power is not in grasping tighter, but in knowing when to let your hands fall open. Being vulnerable means being unsafe. Somewhere along the way, we learned that showing emotion is risky. Maybe someone laughed when we cried. Maybe they turned away when we opened up. Maybe we were told to toughen up or get over it. And so we did. We built walls. We became skilled at smiling through sadness, nodding through disappointment, holding it all in so we wouldn't be seen as weak. Vulnerability came to feel like exposure, like stepping into the world without armor, and in a world that often rewards performance over presence, silence over truth. That can feel terrifying. But here's the truth. Vulnerability is not the absence of protection. It is the presence of honesty. It is choosing to show the parts of yourself that don't have a script, that don't always look polished or impressive. And while yes, vulnerability carries risk, it also carries the seeds of connection. You cannot be truly seen without being vulnerable. You cannot be truly loved while hiding half of yourself. The fear that vulnerability is unsafe often stems from past pain. But pain is not always a prophecy. Not everyone will reject you. Not everyone will mock you. Some people are capable of holding space. Some people are waiting for someone to go first. When you allow yourself to be seen, not the curated version, but the real one, you give others permission to do the same. You shift the room, you change the dynamic, and in that raw space, something beautiful happens. Trust. Vulnerability doesn't mean sharing everything with everyone. It means being real where it matters. Being soft when you'd rather shut down. Being honest even when your voice shakes. You don't have to prove you're okay all the time. You don't have to hide the hurt to stay respected. What's truly unsafe is abandoning yourself just to be accepted. What's truly lonely is being surrounded while still pretending. The most powerful thing you can do is say, "Here I am, not perfect, but present." That's not weakness. That's courage. Layer 4, identity distortions. That's just the way I am. It sounds like acceptance, like honesty, like a declaration of self-knowledge. That's just the way I am. Stubborn, anxious, distant, messy, guarded. It's a phrase we use to draw a line in the sand, to justify habits we're tired of trying to change, to shield ourselves from expectations we don't believe we can meet. But more often than not, it's not self-knowledge, it's resignation, a quiet surrender to a version of ourselves we've gotten used to. Maybe someone told you who you were, too sensitive, too intense, too cold, and you believe them. Maybe life hardened you in ways you never asked for. Maybe survival shaped your personality more than intention ever did. So, now, those traits feel permanent, unchangeable, a fixed identity instead of a living process. But here's the truth. Who you are is not a static conclusion. It's an unfolding story. You are not frozen in time. You are not destined to repeat the same patterns simply because they feel familiar. The phrase "that's just the way I am" becomes a cage when it's used to protect the ego from the discomfort of growth. It shuts down curiosity. It defends the past instead of opening the door to possibility. You are allowed to evolve, to become softer, or stronger, or clearer. You are allowed to outgrow behaviors that once kept you safe, but now keep you small. There is nothing dishonest about change when it comes from awareness. You are not betraying yourself by becoming more whole. Real authenticity is not stubborn repetition. It's honest transformation. The most true version of you may still be waiting underneath the story you've been repeating. Don't confuse familiar with true. Don't confuse consistency with integrity. You are not a sentence that's already been written. You are the author. And every day, you get to revise, you get to ask, is this still me? Or is this just what I've learned to say? I'm too broken to change. This thought doesn't always shout. Sometimes, it just lingers beneath the surface, quiet, persistent, familiar. It shows up when you're trying to heal and you stumble, when you want to grow, but your old patterns pull you back. When you see others evolve and feel like you're stuck in place, "I'm too broken" becomes a story we tell ourselves when hope feels too dangerous. When we've tried before and failed, when pain has become so woven into our identity that we no longer know where it ends and we begin. But brokenness is not a final state. It's not your essence. It's a moment, a season, a wound that has not yet had the space to breathe. The truth is, every person carries fractures, cracks where pain has entered, where love didn't arrive on time, where survival required armor. But cracks don't mean the foundation is ruined. In fact, those are often the places where the light gets in. You are not too broken. You are simply not finished. Change doesn't require perfection. It requires willingness. And the idea that you must be fully healed to grow is a lie designed to keep you exactly where you are. Healing isn't linear. Some days you'll feel strong, others, you'll feel fragile again. That doesn't mean you're broken beyond repair. It means you're human in progress. Often, the belief that we're too far gone is a defense. If we're broken beyond hope, then we no longer have to try. We no longer have to risk disappointment. But you deserve more than resignation. You deserve the chance to try again. With gentleness this time, you deserve to see yourself not as damaged goods, but as a story still unfolding. Change isn't about becoming someone else. It's about returning to the version of you that was buried under hurt, fear, and false beliefs. You don't have to be unscarred to be whole. You don't have to be flawless to be worthy. You are not too broken. You are just beginning. I'm not creative, smart, strong enough. This thought rarely appears all at once. It sneaks in quietly, in moments of doubt, in silence after comparison. You see someone paint beautifully, speak brilliantly, rise resiliently, and something inside you whispers, "That's not me. I'm not like them. I could never." Slowly, this voice becomes familiar. It narrates your limitations like facts. I'm not creative, so you stop making. I'm not smart, so you stop asking. I'm not strong, so you stop standing. But this voice doesn't come from truth. It comes from fear, from a world that has trained you to measure your worth by performance, to confuse potential with perfection, to believe that gifts must look a certain way to be valid. But creativity isn't limited to artists. Intelligence isn't confined to test scores. Strength doesn't always roar. You are not lacking. You are layered. And the parts of you that feel not enough are often the parts that haven't been given space to grow. The truth is, we often call ourselves incapable before we've even begun. We assume others were born with something we weren't. But most brilliance doesn't come from magic. It comes from motion, from trying, from failing, from returning, from giving yourself permission to explore without the pressure of mastery. Your creativity may be quiet. Your strength may be soft. Your intelligence may not shout in crowded rooms. But it exists. And it deserves to be nurtured, not dismissed. Every time you say, "I'm not enough," you reinforce a wall between you and the person you're capable of becoming. But growth doesn't ask for arrival. It asks for presence, for showing up with what you have and letting it expand over time. You don't have to be the best. You just have to be willing. Let go of the story that you are inherently lacking. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are simply unfolding. I've always been this way, so I can improve. There's a quiet comfort in certainty, even when that certainty is limiting. When you've carried the same habits, reactions, or beliefs for years, they start to feel like identity. You say, "I've always been this way," and it feels like truth, like realism, like maturity, but often it's just exhaustion disguised as acceptance. You've tried to change before. You've read the books, made the promises, drawn the lines, and still found yourself circling back to the same behaviors. So now, change feels naive, hope feels fragile, and the version of you that wants to grow is drowned out by the voice that says, "This is just who I am." But the truth is, repetition doesn't equal destiny. Just because something has been true for a long time doesn't mean it has to stay true forever. Patterns are not personality. They're echoes of what once worked, once protected you, once made sense in a different chapter. But you're not in that chapter anymore. You've outgrown the script. Even if you still remember the lines, the mind clings to the familiar not because it's best, but because it's safe, predictable. But growth doesn't come from predictability. It comes from permission. Permission to pause and ask, is this still serving me? Is this still who I want to be? The ability to change is not a switch you flip. It's a door you keep returning to. Some days, it creaks open. Other days, it stays shut. But as long as you keep knocking, you're moving, you are not fixed, you are fluid, your brain can rewire, your habits can shift, your story can evolve. Change is not about erasing your past. It's about not being ruled by it. You can carry your history and still write something new. You are not doomed by repetition. You are shaped by what you continue to believe, and belief can be rewritten, one choice at a time. I'm defined by what others see in me. It starts subtly, a compliment that makes you feel seen, a disapproving glance that makes you shrink. The way someone reacts becomes a mirror, and soon, you begin to believe that your reflection only exists in the eyes of others. You scan faces for approval, adjust your tone to fit the room, perform in quiet ways just to feel accepted. Over time, the self becomes a collection of responses, a shape molded by what others project onto you. You feel valuable when you're praised, invisible when ignored, loved when you're pleasing, too much when you're honest. So you learn to monitor, edit, adapt. You lose touch with your own center because you're always leaning outward. But here's the truth. You are not the sum of people's perceptions. Their gaze may shape how you feel in a moment, but it cannot define who you are. Their assumptions are filtered through their own fears, histories, and expectations. And when you live by how others see you, you give them the pen to write your story. You become a character in someone else's script, performing, not living. Real identity begins when you stop asking, "What do they think of me?" and start asking, "What do I think of myself? Who am I when no one is watching? Who am I when I'm not trying to impress, fix, or convince?" That version of you, the one who exists outside performance, is where truth lives. And that truth doesn't need to be flashy, impressive, or perfect. It just needs to be yours. Let go of the exhausting task of managing perception. You don't need to be understood by everyone to be real. You don't need to be admired to be whole. You can disappoint someone and still be aligned. You can be misunderstood and still be rooted in truth. Your identity is not a reflection, it's a relationship. One between you and the quiet, knowing at your core. That's where home is. That's where you begin. I need to fix myself to be lovable. This belief often hides beneath the surface of self-improvement. It sounds like motivation. I'll work on myself. I'll get better. I'll finally be worthy. But beneath those good intentions is a quieter message. Right now, I'm not enough. Right now, I'm hard to love. So, you chase wholeness like a finish line. You try to patch your flaws, soften your edges, perfect your responses, believing that once you're healed, polished, or more palatable, love will arrive and stay. But the truth is, love that only comes when you're fixed is not love. It's performance-based approval, and approval is never stable. It shifts with your mood, your mistakes, your imperfections. Real love doesn't demand that you be flawless. It asks that you be honest. It doesn't wait until you've healed every wound to offer care. It sits beside you in the mess and says, I see you here, and you are still worthy. You are not a project to complete before you deserve connection. You are not a broken thing waiting to be exchanged for a better version. Growth is beautiful. Healing is important, but they are not prerequisites for being loved. They are not admission tickets into belonging. Often, the deepest wound is not the one that made us hurt, but the one that made us believe our hurt makes us unlovable. That's the lie. You can be tender and still treasured. You can be uncertain and still embraced. You can be in the middle of the storm and still be someone's safe place, including your own. The work is not to become lovable. The work is to remember you already are, and to let love reach you before you think you've earned it. You are allowed to be both a masterpiece and a work in progress, and anyone who tells you otherwise hasn't yet learned how to love without conditions. I can't show weakness. It's dangerous. This belief is often learned, not chosen. Maybe you grew up in an environment where vulnerability was punished, where crying made you a target, where needing help was met with silence, or worse, with shame. You watch people survive by being hard, loud, untouchable, and so you learned, don't let them see you sweat, don't show the crack, don't give them an opening, because if you do, they'll take advantage, they'll judge you, they'll leave. Over time, that instinct becomes armor. You become composed, efficient, strong, even when you're unraveling inside. You smile when you're tired. You joke when you're hurting. You help others so you don't have to admit you need help too. And on the surface, it works. People respect you, depend on you, see you as resilient. But underneath, the weight builds. And so does the loneliness. Because if you never show weakness, no one truly sees you. They see the mask, not the human beneath it. The truth is, strength and softness are not opposites. They coexist. Real strength is not about never breaking. It's about not being afraid to break open, to show the truth of who you are without collapsing into shame. Vulnerability is not always safe, but hiding all the time is its own form of danger. It keeps people out. It keeps healing out. It keeps you out of your own full experience. You are not weak for asking for help. You are not fragile for needing rest. You are not dramatic for feeling deeply. Those who taught you to fear your own softness were often afraid of theirs. But their fear is not your future. You can create new safety. You can build relationships where your truth is not a threat. And you can start by showing it to yourself. You don't have to be invincible to be worthy. You just have to be real. My flaws make me unworthy. It's easy to believe that love, acceptance, and belonging are rewards for perfection. That if you say the right things, look the right way, make no mistakes, then you'll finally be enough. So, you work hard to hide the parts of you that feel messy, complicated, too much or not enough. You minimize your fears, you silence your anger, you bury your shame, and little by little, you begin to believe that your flaws are stains, marks that make you less valuable, less lovable, less deserving. But this belief is rooted in a lie. That worth must be earned. that only the polished deserve peace, that only the flawless are worthy of love. The truth is far gentler. Your flaws do not make you unworthy. They make you human. The crack in your voice, the scar on your heart, the pattern you're still trying to break, none of these cancel your value. In fact, they are often the very things that make you real, relatable, and whole. We don't connect with people because they're perfect. We connect because they're honest, because they allow us to see them, not just admire them. Your flaws are not barriers to love. They are bridges to understanding, humility, and depth. Hiding them doesn't make you safer. It makes you lonelier. You don't have to earn love by becoming someone else. You are not a problem to be solved. You are a presence to be met. Wholeness is not the absence of flaws. It's the ability to hold them without shame. When you stop trying to edit yourself into acceptability, something beautiful happens. You realize you were already enough. Not because you got everything right, but because you were never required to. The love that's real won't ask you to be flawless. It will ask you to be present, to be real, and to believe, even when it's hard, that your imperfections are not in the way of your worth. They are part of what makes it true. If I'm not useful, I'm nothing. This belief often forms early, when praise came only after performance, when love felt more available when you were helping, fixing, achieving. You learned that your presence was valued most when it served a function, when it made someone else's life easier, smoother, better. And over time, you began to tie your worth to your usefulness. You became the helper, the problem solver, the strong one. You knew how to show up for others, but not always for yourself. When you rested, you felt guilt. When you received, you felt undeserving. The idea of simply being, without a task, without a purpose, felt foreign, maybe even selfish. But here's the truth. Usefulness is a role. Worth is an essence. One can change, the other cannot. You are not an object. You are not a tool. Your value does not decrease when you are tired, quiet, or simply unavailable. You are not less lovable when you have nothing to offer but your presence. Real connection is not built on transaction. It's built on truth. And the truth is, you deserve to exist, to rest, to be, even when you're not contributing, even when you're not productive, even when you're simply breathing. Those who only value you when you are useful are not seeing you. They are using you. And sometimes, that includes how you see yourself. The internal voice that says, do more or disappear, isn't keeping you motivated. It's keeping you afraid that stillness equals invisibility, that asking for care makes you weak, but you are allowed to receive without earning, to be cared for without proving, to exist without constantly performing your worth. You are not your productivity. You are not your output. You are not your usefulness. You are human, and that is enough. I don't deserve happiness yet. This thought doesn't always scream. Sometimes it speaks in quiet refusals. You hold back from joy, dismiss good news, downplay your progress. You tell yourself it's not time. You haven't done enough. You haven't healed enough. You haven't earned it. Happiness feels like a reward for later. After the work is done, after the pain is justified, after you've finally become a version of yourself you can approve of. But here's the truth. Happiness is not something you earn. It's not a medal you receive at the end of struggle. It's a moment, a breath, a permission you give yourself in the middle of it all. The idea that you must suffer long enough before you're allowed to feel joy is a story written by shame. Shame says you are unfinished and therefore unworthy, that your flaws must be fixed before softness is safe, that your wounds disqualify you from ease. But the deeper truth is this: you don't become worthy of happiness. You realize that you always were, even in your mess, even in your uncertainty, even when you were hurting. You were never meant to delay joy until you became someone else. You were meant to feel it as you are, imperfect, evolving, and deeply human. Letting yourself be happy is not disrespecting the pain you've known. It's honoring that you've survived it, that despite it all. You still have the capacity to feel light, to laugh, to rest, to soften. Sometimes, joy is part of healing, not the result of it. It opens the cracks that pain left behind and fills them with something new, something gentle, something that reminds you life is not only a problem to solve, it's also a place to feel. You don't have to wait to be better. You don't have to finish the list. You don't have to fix the past. You only have to open the door to joy, just a little, and let it stay. Layer 5, Existential Illusions. There's a perfect version of me I must become. There's a haunting image many of us carry in the back of our minds, a perfected version of ourselves, the one who always knows what to say, who wakes early with purpose, who never procrastinates, never doubts, never stumbles. This ideal self becomes a silent benchmark, and every time we fall short of it, we feel like failures, not because we've done something wrong, but because we're not there yet. So we chase, we shape-shift, we optimize every aspect of life. We treat selfhood like a project, a brand, a constant state of becoming. And still, the image moves just out of reach. The closer we get, the more we find to fix. Because perfection, by design, is unlivable. And the more we worship it, the more we abandon the messy, real version of ourselves, the version that exists now, the one who is confused, tired, still figuring it out. But here's the truth. You were never meant to become perfect. You were meant to become real, and realness includes contradiction. It includes failure. It includes a kind of softness that perfection will never allow. The ideal self is a fantasy, a shadow stitched from comparison, guilt, and imagined expectations. It is shaped more by what you think others want than by who you actually are. The more you chase it, the more you lose touch with the grounded, growing human within you. You are allowed to strive. Growth is beautiful, but not when it's rooted in shame. Not when it tells you that you are only worthy once you arrive. You don't need to become someone else to be enough. The work is not about reaching some higher version of yourself. It's about returning to the parts you've silenced along the way. The ones that didn't fit the mold. The ones that were told they were too slow, too weird, too tender. You are not a goal to accomplish. You are a life to inhabit, and you are allowed to do that now. One day, I'll finally be complete. It's a quiet promise we make to ourselves in the background of life. That one day, after the degree, the job, the relationship, the healing, we'll finally be whole. We imagine this elusive moment of arrival where everything inside us clicks into place. No more doubt, no more fear, just peace, certainty, completion. So we wait, we chase, we collect experiences, habits, affirmations like puzzle pieces. And when life still feels uncertain, we assume we're missing something essential, something final. But the truth is, completion is a mirage, a story we invent to soothe the discomfort of being in progress. The human experience is not linear, and it's certainly not neat. We are not jigsaw puzzles with a final corner piece. We are shifting landscapes, changing with seasons, scarred by storms, softened by time, and the idea that you will one day be finished, resolved, done, is quietly cruel, because it turns your life into a waiting room. It tells you that who you are today is not quite enough, that joy is on hold, that self-love is conditional, but you are not incomplete. You are becoming, and becoming isn't a flaw. It's the core of what it means to be alive. You will evolve, yes. You will learn. You will shed old skins. But none of that makes your current self less worthy. Growth doesn't mean who you are now is broken. It just means you're in motion. And motion is not something to fix. It's something to honor. You're allowed to want more while still embracing what is. You're allowed to move forward without rejecting the place you're standing. You're allowed to rest in the in-between. There is no final form, no perfect version, no ultimate peace waiting at the end of a checklist. There is only the now where you're already enough, even if you're still unsure, even if you still ache, even if you haven't figured it out. You are not a project to complete. You are a person to accompany with kindness through every version you become. I must have a grand purpose to matter. There's a deep, lingering idea that in order for our lives to be meaningful, they must be extraordinary, that we must uncover some grand mission, something world-changing, awe-inspiring, undeniably significant. We're told that without it, we're just drifting, wasting potential, taking up space, so we search for signs, for callings, for that one thing we were born to do. And when it doesn't arrive in a clear, shining form, we wonder, am I failing at being human? The world makes purpose feel like a performance, a stage where only the loudest, boldest acts count. But real meaning isn't always loud. It often lives in quiet choices, in how you speak to someone in pain, in the way you hold space for your own grief, in the unnoticed gestures, the unspectacular love, the daily choosing to be kind even when it's hard. The pressure to matter in a cosmic way can become a trap. It tells you your life must be justified with results. That value must be proven. That fulfillment must be big. But what if purpose isn't a single thing to find, but 1,000 small things to live? What if it's not about what you do, but how you do it, with care, with honesty, with presence? The flower doesn't ask if it's enough just to bloom. The moon doesn't worry if it's bright enough to matter. You, too, are allowed to be here without needing to dazzle. Your existence is not a resume. You don't need to earn space with greatness. Sometimes your purpose is to listen, to learn, to grow, to rest, to support one other person quietly and completely. That is not small. That is not less. It is simply real. Your life is not a problem to solve or a legacy to construct. It's a moment-to-moment unfolding. Let that be enough. Let your mattering be ordinary and human and here, not in some imagined future where you finally become impressive, but in this breath, in this version of you, right now. Something out there will save me. There's a quiet hope we carry, often unspoken, that something outside of us, a person, a breakthrough, a moment, will one day arrive and make everything better. We imagine the right job, the perfect partner, the sudden realization, the spiritual awakening that will finally lift the weight, that will calm the storm inside and tell us what to do. We wait for it. We fantasize about it. We build escape hatches in our minds, hoping one day they'll open. Because it's easier. sometimes, to believe in a rescue than to sit in the uncomfortable truth that no one is coming, not in the way we imagine, not to make it all easy, or clear, or painless. This isn't to say we must go it alone. People can help. Love can support. Grace can appear in unexpected places. But the work, your work, is yours. The healing, the understanding, the change, they begin within, and waiting to be saved only delays what you're capable of creating. The truth is, you are already the one you've been waiting for, not the polished version of you, not the healed, perfected, enlightened self, but the current one, the one who's tired, unsure, afraid. That's who begins. That's who takes the first small step. No savior will arrive to hand you back your voice. No miracle moment will deliver you from your doubt like magic. But you can learn to sit with it, to breathe through it, to ask yourself what you need instead of what you lack. Every time you choose to stay with your discomfort instead of fleeing it, you reclaim your power. Every time you stop outsourcing your worth to someone else's validation, you take root deeper in yourself. You're not broken waiting to be fixed. You're becoming someone who trusts their own hands to rebuild. The world will not save you, but it will meet you, step by step, as you learn to save yourself, not by rising above your pain, but by holding it gently. That is not weakness. That is the beginning of strength. If I do everything right, nothing bad will happen. Deep inside many of us is a quiet superstition that if we try hard enough, make the right choices, follow the rules, and be good, then life will protect us. We think of pain as punishment, chaos as consequence, and misfortune as a result of failure. So we become careful. We plan, rehearse, anticipate. We ask, what did I miss? What did I do wrong when something breaks? Because in our minds, life is a contract. Do everything right and nothing will fall apart. But the world doesn't work like that. Not always, not fairly, not predictably. People who love deeply still get left. People who work hard still lose everything. People who live kindly still suffer. Pain is not a math equation we solve our way out of. It's not distributed according to merit. Sometimes it just comes without warning, without reason. And the belief that we can outsmart it makes it worse. Because when things go wrong, and they will, we don't just grieve, we blame ourselves. We believe we failed, not just at life, but at controlling it. But life isn't a system to control. It's a wave to move through. The goal isn't to never fall, but to know how to rise. The truth is, doing things right is not a shield. It's a compass, a way to act with integrity, not insurance against pain. Your worth isn't measured by how well you avoid harm. And your wounds aren't proof of mistakes. They're proof of living. Let go of the fantasy that you can do life so perfectly that nothing will hurt. It will. And you'll still be okay. You'll still be whole. The storms will come. Even when you check all the boxes, what matters is not avoiding the storm, but knowing how to return to yourself when it passes. I need to find the answer to my life. There's something seductive about the idea of a final answer, a single realization, insight, or moment of clarity that will make everything click. We imagine it like a hidden truth, something buried deep within or floating far beyond, just waiting to be found. A purpose that explains everything, a revelation that ends all doubt. So we search through books, beliefs, relationships, careers. We build timelines of meaning, hoping one day the pieces will arrange themselves into a clear picture that says, This is who you are. This is why you're here. But life doesn't unfold like a riddle with a solution. It's more like a song, meant to be felt, not solved. The desire for the answer often masks a fear of uncertainty, of making the wrong choice, of living a life that turns out to be meaningless. So, we hesitate. We wait. We believe that we must figure it all out before we begin. But the truth is, we understand life by living it, not by decoding it in advance. There is no perfect lens that will make your entire story make sense from the start. Clarity comes in fragments. It whispers through your mistakes, your heartbreaks, your quiet joy. It lives not in certainty, but in curiosity, not in control, but in presence. You don't need to find the answer. You need to stay close to your questions. Let them evolve with you. Let them be companions, not burdens. The most meaningful paths are rarely mapped ahead of time. They are stumbled into, shaped by intention, and made sacred by how you walk them. You are not a puzzle to complete. You are a process unfolding. And maybe that's the point. Maybe life was never meant to give you the answer. Maybe it was meant to teach you how to live inside the question and still breathe fully, still laugh, still hurt, still belong. Life should make sense. We long for order, for the narrative arc where events align and outcomes feel deserved. We want life to feel coherent, like a story where everything happens for a reason and makes sense in the end. We look back on pain and try to force it into meaning. We look forward to joy and expect it to follow logic. But life isn't a neatly written book. It's a chaotic, open draft with pages missing and lines that contradict. And when things don't make sense, when tragedy strikes the kind or good things fall apart, we panic, we ask, why? As if there must be an answer, as if confusion is a flaw in the system, not part of it. But maybe life wasn't built to be fully understood. Maybe its beauty lies in how we respond to what we don't understand. Not every chapter needs resolution. Not every moment needs to teach a lesson. Some things simply happen. Some losses remain unredeemed. Some joy comes without warning or reason, and that's okay. The mind tries to tie everything into logic, to map out a path where each step fits a plan, but the heart knows something else. That meaning is felt more than found, created more than discovered. You don't need everything to make sense to feel at peace. You don't need to solve the story to live inside it with grace. When we let go of the demand for life to explain itself, we begin to notice the small things, the quiet, the connections, the subtle ways we grow despite the noise. Meaning, when it comes, often whispers, and sometimes it only makes sense long after we've stopped needing it to. So breathe into the mystery. Let the contradictions stay unresolved. Let yourself be alive inside something imperfect, uncertain, and still astonishing. Pain means something is wrong with me. Pain often arrives uninvited. It sits in the chest, the gut, behind the eyes. And when it stays too long, we start to believe it's a reflection of us, of something broken, defective, or weak. We don't just feel pain, we identify with it. We think, there must be something wrong with me to feel this way. But pain is not a character flaw. It's a signal, a voice, a part of being alive. Feeling deeply does not make you fragile. It makes you human. And yet, we treat pain like a stain, something to hide, to fix, to hurry through. We see it as a failure of mindset or resilience. We ask ourselves, why can't I just be happy? Why can't I move on already? But healing doesn't follow deadlines. Grief doesn't read motivational quotes. Some pain isn't meant to be erased. It's meant to be integrated, held, honored. Sometimes, pain is the body remembering something the mind can't explain. Sometimes it's the soul calling for attention. You're not broken because you hurt. You're not failing because you feel. The most beautiful humans carry invisible scars, proof that they've lived, lost, and still chose to stay. Your pain doesn't need to be justified to be real. You don't need to hide it to be worthy. What's wrong is not that you're hurting. What's wrong is the belief that you're unworthy because of it. The truth is, you can hurt and still be whole. You can cry and still be strong. You can break and still matter. Pain is not the enemy. The shame around it is. So when it visits, don't ask, "What's wrong with me?" Ask, "What needs care right now? What part of me is asking to be seen, held, and gently understood?" You're not too much. You're just healing in a world that doesn't always know how to hold space. And that's not your fault. My mind tells me the truth. Your mind is loud. It narrates your day, judges your actions, fills in the blanks. It whispers stories about what others think of you, what might go wrong, who you should be, and it sounds so convincing. After all, it's in your voice. It lives inside your head. So we assume, if I think it, it must be true. But the mind is not an oracle. It's a storyteller, a pattern-seeking, fear-driven machine shaped by memory, emotion, and bias. It replays old wounds, exaggerates threats, and filters the world through past experience. It tells you you're not enough, even when you are. It warns you of rejection, even when you're safe. It clings to certainty, even in chaos. But not every thought is a fact. Not every mental loop deserves your belief. The mind can misfire. It can create meaning where there is none. It can protect you in ways that limit you. And when you don't question it, you become trapped, mistaking fear for foresight, doubt for wisdom, and anxiety for intuition. Awareness begins when you learn to pause, to notice your thoughts without obeying them, to ask gently, "Is this helpful? Is this mine? Is this true, truly true, or just familiar?" You are not your thoughts. You are the one who observes them, who chooses which to follow, which to hold, which to release. The goal isn't to silence the mind. It's to create space between what you think and what you believe, between what arises and how you respond. In that space, you regain freedom, freedom to rewrite old narratives, freedom to choose peace over prediction, freedom to say, "That voice is scared, but I don't have to be." Your mind will always talk. Let it. But know that not every word deserves your trust. Some thoughts are echoes, some are fog, and some, when held too tightly, become cages. You can listen with compassion without letting them define you. You are not the storm. You are the sky holding it. I am the thoughts I think. It's easy to believe that you are your mind, that your worth is the sum of your inner dialogue, the running commentary of doubts, fears, judgments, and hopes. When your thoughts are kind, you feel safe. When they're cruel, you feel broken. You carry the weight of every intrusive image, every anxious forecast, every moment you thought something terrible and wondered, "What kind of person thinks this?" But here's the truth your thoughts won't tell you. You are not them. You are not your anger, not your guilt, not your fleeting impulses or catastrophic what-ifs. Your thoughts are weather patterns, passing across the sky of your awareness. They shift with mood, memory, hormones, sleep, food, and experience. You can have thousands of thoughts a day, some wise, some absurd, some simply echoes of a world that shaped you, and still, none of them define you. Your identity is deeper than what arises in your mind. You are the space that notices, the witness behind the noise, the quiet beneath the current, the one who chooses whether to believe, to act, or to simply breathe. There's freedom in that knowing. It means you can observe your darkest thoughts without being consumed by them. You can say, "Ah, a thought," and let it drift. You don't need to fight your mind to find peace. You just need to stop mistaking it for you. The mind will keep thinking. That's its nature. But you can learn to rest in something more stable. The part of you that watches, gently, patiently. That part doesn't shame or rush or panic. It just is. And that is who you are. The space where all things come and go, where stories rise and dissolve, where even the thought I am, my thoughts is seen, and then released. You are not broken. You are not bad for what crosses your mind. You are more than words, more than language, more than the flicker of ideas. You are the stillness beneath them. And that is not a thought. That is truth. If you made it here, maybe something inside you was searching for stillness, for a moment to breathe, for a quiet voice that reminds you, you are not your doubts, your fears, or even your thoughts. You are something far gentler, and perhaps far braver. We hope these reflections gave you space to see yourself a little more clearly, and to hold your inner world with more kindness. If any thought stayed with you, write it down or share it below. Your words might be the gentle echo someone else needs tonight. If this resonated, consider subscribing to The Hollow Room, a space for quiet minds and curious hearts. And if you feel generous, leave a like or share it with someone who could use a little light in their own mind. Until next time, stay soft, stay human.